Hey guys, welcome to the pod.
The Pea Pod. I'm Peas.
And I'm Ladle.
I'm Anna.
And we've got a full ladle of peas just for you.
So let's get to it.
There we go.
There we go. Well,
All right. You want to do the introduction this time?
Anna.
Our new friend, Anna, we go to church with her on Sundays, but we recently met this Sunday. So,
Yeah.
But one of the things that I had found out about Anna is that she is a lighting professional, self-proclaimed lighting professional. She loves doing lighting and all things that have to do with it and how it really fills a room. So we brought her on to talk about that because it's Worship Wednesday.
Yeah, worship. This is coming out on a Wednesday, by the way.
Okay. And we're going to talk about lighting and kind of how it affects the ambiance of a room and things.
In worship, we also want to
Yeah.
talk about how it can affect worship.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. So Anna's going to educate us a little bit on some things.
Yeah, so to start, what's your major and your year?
Oh. So this is my second year at Moody. I had done a year at Columbia College of Chicago.
Mhm.
I was a musical theater major.
Wow.
So not that anymore. Here at Moody, I'm Ministry to Victims of Sexual Exploitation.
Okay.
So not the same.
No.
Yeah.
Yeah. They see me work for ITS and they're like, "Oh, are you a comms major?" And I'm like,
No.
"Actually." So this is my second year
Okay.
doing that major.
Very cool. I didn't know that. We're learning. A lot of times, people who come in here, they talk, and we're like, "Yeah, I know," because we know them. But this is good educational purposes for us.
Bonding time.
Yeah.
Yes.
Except it's public.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Public bonding
Except
time.
it will be on YouTube,
Oh, yeah.
Apple Podcast, and Spotify.
They might play it at church.
Yeah, for real.
It could appear on the,
Maybe.
Announcements.
on the announcement.
I might post it in chapel.
Yeah, for real.
So, what are your favorite things about lighting? How did you get into it? That kind of a thing.
So I'm just gonna give you all the spiel.
Do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
I got into lighting because I love. This is gonna sound so weird, but when I was younger, I loved stars. And I know we all look at stars, and we're like, "Oh my god, they're so pretty.
Great.
They're beautiful." But I was like, "Wow." And then I was like, "How is it that like the sun literally lights up the earth?" I was like, "I don't get that." And I just had this like fascination with like glares on windows, and I was just like, I don't know. So when I did theater in high school, I did theater for about 6 years. And we were trained in all the aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And lighting was my favorite because I was like, you know what? I was like, I want to see how this works. And our junior year, my teacher basically said, you guys can pick a concentration.
Oh, exciting.
Yeah. And
That is
so
cool.
it was really cool. And so I picked lighting design, and
Mhm.
she gave me a textbook, and there were only like 5 of us in the class.
Wow.
So we really got to like dive into it.
Mhm.
And I didn't get to learn a lot because that was also like COVID had hit that
Yeah.
year. And my whole final exam was a fashion show that I was going to make and design the clothes for, but also like do the lighting design for it, which was going to be like the biggest,
Wow.
like the main thing.
Whoa.
That's so cool.
That
I was
is cool.
so excited. And then COVID, and I was like,
Ah.
I know. And
What? That's
yeah.
Did you ever get to do it?
No. I still have some of the like half finished pieces that I made. And eventually I looked at them and I was like, yeah, no one's ever going to see these. But so it kind of was like, bummer. I never got to do my final lighting thing.
Yeah.
So then when I came to Moody and I joined ITS, my boss was like, oh, he took me to Torrey Gray and he's like, we have a lighting board up there, but we don't have a lighting person. So, you know, I'm like, I could be your lighting person as a joke. And he took it literal.
He was like, okay, yeah.
okay. Yeah.
The next conference for lighting, he said, Anna. And I'm like, I don't know what equipment you have. I was like, I don't know how to use this. And so eventually I had, from the textbook in high school, I knew what lighting fixtures and how it worked and
Yeah.
kind of like how light beams work.
Mm-hmm.
And when that was like my foundation of it. I'm like, okay, I can do anything, because once you know the basics of it, then you can just literally YouTube
Oh, yeah.
how to work
Yeah.
a lighting fixture. My boss is like helpful in a sense that he like redirects me to
Mhm.
his boss and people who have done lighting, and there's a lot of creativity with it. I love that for each like let's say location or event, you have a different lighting perspective.
Mm-hmm.
So you guys say this is Worship Wednesday. Lighting for church is going to be completely different than lighting for chapel, which is totally different than lighting for Founders Week. Like,
Oh yeah.
Which is crazy to think.
I
Yeah.
know.
Because, I mean, ultimately, if you told me, like, what's the difference between chapel lighting and, like, right now, Founders Week, I don't know that I could tell you. But I think that is because it feels like it's meant
Supposed
to be the way it
the
is.
lighting for Founders
You know what
Week.
I
Yeah.
mean?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And a lot of that is like, for example, Founders Week, I had the privilege of doing the lighting design for it.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept a lot of the dark blue colors because Moody, I think, is, I think Founders Week is mainly about Moody and Moody
Yeah.
alumni. And so I'm like, okay, royal blue, we're going to stick to that. Chapel colors is royal blue. Of course, the Founders Week banner has some colors
Pink.
to it, and you know.
Ish, tealish.
Yeah, it's teal, magenta, dark
Yeah,
blue,
yeah.
and we can play around with that. But colors, for anyone who wants to do lighting, colors is going to be your like
Mm-hmm.
biggest thing to focus on.
Yeah,
Um,
when I was in high school, we had these big stage lights, and then we would put these things in it that I think they were called like gels or
Yeah.
something.
Mm-hmm.
But they were like so fragile sometimes, certain ones of them or something like that. I didn't retain a lot of what I learned about lighting, but it was in my stagecraft class, and
Yeah.
she would bring down like the whole bar full of like lights and stuff and lower it down. And then we would get a close up look, but she was like, you know, these ones wear out after a certain amount of time because the light's so powerful it like wears down the color. And I was
It
like,
melts
what?
some of them. Yeah.
Yeah.
And like
What?
certain colors like retain heat more than others. So for one of the productions in high school, my teacher had gotten us some like, she's like, I'm going to get some cheaper gels, and the like warm colored ones melted off.
Yeah.
Like they melted off, and the others, like the blues, the greens, they were fine. And we're like,
Mhm.
okay. Some
Which
of
is
them
so
don't
crazy.
return. Yeah.
And the other thing was that we didn't have like a catwalk up in my auditorium. We had this jet wire grid kind of thing. So it was like bouncy. It was like you were walking on a trampoline, but all the lights were attached to something above it. But they were so powerful that when it like went down to the stage floor, you couldn't see the grid show up in it because the light would like bend around it and like cover what.
Oh, you mean like
Like,
the lights went
were-
behind that wire
like,
and went through it?
Yeah, the lights were up here, and then the grid was like we were standing on it, so they were like above us, but it would go down to the stage, which was like 6 stories below us, and it was just like you couldn't
yeah,
even tell
those-
there was a grid at all because
Okay.
they were just so strong.
Yeah.
Which is
And like,
crazy.
you have to measure, like the professionals have to measure the distance from the stage to where you're going to put a light fixture to how tall it is,
Wow.
so that you know based on where you're going to angle it how intense the beam is going to be. The lights that we have on our catwalk are
Mhm.
high up, and that's because they can shoot a longer distance. They're meant
Mm.
for that. They're more powerful. They have a lot more power, more juice, as they say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Versus like our LEDs, the Slimpar model, they are very soft. They're softer, so it's okay to have them close up, to have them angled on the side, give you guys all that dimension. So it's like based on the fixture is, you know, how you're gonna work around that.
Mm-hmm. If you were setting up for like a church or like our church, for example, and you were doing the lighting, how would that be different than if you were doing something for, say, like a concert or something? You know what I mean?
Our church
Like-
at night, because our church during the day practically has no
Yeah.
extra lighting because it's
Right.
all glass. So
Mhm.
how about our church at night? Let's say they're solid walls, and there's not as much natural light.
Sure.
Even like, I don't know if you guys have seen, but sometimes it's raining outside, and I'll walk into church and it's dark. like because the windows aren't bringing in any sunlight, and they
Mhm.
just keep the regular. It's just like 3 strips of warm light and maybe a front wash,
Mm-hmm.
and that's it. And I think that is beautiful. And I think we kind of have to get creative and pretend, like, not maybe not pretend, but like guess, what does this mean? Like, what message are you sending with these lights?
Yeah.
So when it's stormy outside, it's dark inside of the church.
Mhm.
And I think that it gives more intimacy, more room. If someone wants to cry, sometimes they don't feel like they can be vulnerable in worship if there's a like lights
Oh yeah.
flashing in their eyes.
Right.
A concert, like you're saying, a concert you kind of have to show off.
Yeah.
You're getting paid to do that, and there's a lot of people watching, and you're hired based off of like how good you are. And they're like,
Yeah.
we want to see
How big
you.
of a show you can
Yeah,
put on.
and it's all about lighting is make them look good.
Yeah.
Make them look good, or like for Founders Week, make them look alive on camera.
Yeah.
You don't want them looking sickly. So for worship, it's not about the worship team. They lead us into worship with them, and they're lit up so that we can, follow them. But it's very beautiful to kind of see, like, we don't have to have all these flashy lights
Mhm.
distracting. If that,
Yeah. No,
kind
that
of
Yeah.
makes
mindset.
total sense.
For sure.
That's interesting. Is there like a difference with like colors that influence people's like emotional
Yeah.
aspects? Do you guys consider that kind of thing too?
100%. I think that that's one of the first things
Mm.
is your color palette.
Yeah.
Have you guys seen Hamilton the musical?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I love using that as an example.
Oh yeah.
It's
I get-
quiet uptown, blue hues.
Yeah. True.
10 Dual Commandments, you have reds, orange. You have all these moving lights. You can't tell that the lights are moving unless you're staring at the floor.
Right.
And it goes unnoticed when you're sitting in the audience, and it's like not distracting.
Mm-hmm.
So, color is the first
Wow.
thing you want to do.
I mean, yeah.
That's so interesting.
One thing that I think is really cool that I always keep in mind is something that I read in my textbook is when you flash a light at someone's eyes and take it away, it takes about I think 25 seconds for their eyes to be able to adjust to the new setting.
Mhm.
And lighting designers will use that to their advantage in theater. They'll flash the audience with a bright beaming light and then go straight to blackout.
Mm.
Why? Because they're focused on adjusting their eyes while stage people are probably moving things and want to go undetected.
Yeah.
So they use things like that to their advantage. We use that for the play for Narnia. The lightning was flashing the audience's eyes while they were transitioning people
Oh.
out of that.
Yeah, you're
remember
so
that.
right.
Yeah.
I went to go see the Broadway production of Lion King the musical, which is
Okay.
one of my personal favorites. But they do this big flash of it's almost like a line coming down the whole auditorium of light, where it's but it's blinding. I mean, absolutely blinding. But it's in between acts, and so it perfectly breaks up the scene
Yeah.
into the next. And I guess I just never really considered that they're probably doing major movement of set pieces and things like that, which is so interesting. I just never considered that.
Yeah. I love it. It's so intentional, very intricate. Like you can get really creative with
Yeah.
it. It's all about shine light in the areas that you need attention on,
Mm-hmm.
and whatever's in the dark, you don't want people to look at that.
Yeah.
Lighting for live performances is different than lighting for movies.
Mm-hmm.
Have you guys seen the movie Sound of Freedom?
I have not. I've heard of it though.
So there's a scene at the very beginning. Basically, what happens is this young girl gets trafficked by a woman who's working with other men, and based on a true story. And her father lets her leave, I believe, with her younger brother to this modeling agency. And what I found really interesting is that in the scene where the father's dropping off the children at the agency, quote unquote, with the lady,
Mm-hmm.
the man is, there's a shot where it's really dark. She's half lit because she opens the door. The hallway's dark and the room behind her is lit, and the man is completely dark. And
like a silhouette kind of thing.
yeah. And I'm like, he's literally left in the dark. Like, you have
Wow.
to interpret the lighting. you don't know what's going to happen in the future. Like, you don't know what's going to happen in the scenes coming if you've never watched the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But they did that to foreshadow.
Interesting.
So, like,
I see what you did there. Foreshadow.
yes. And it's like that thing when she's half in the dark, a lot of times the intent of having one side lit up and the other side dark
Mhm.
is manipulation, a character who's going to turn bad later on. Like,
yeah.
it's a
Darth Vader.
symbol. Like, if you can notice
Absolutely.
that, then it's like, okay, something's up with you. And then later on in the movie, you realize, like, oh, yeah, you
Mm.
know.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I feel like sometimes I feel that way with music. Like certain people have
Mhm.
certain themes, and then it'll get into like a scene, and I start hearing this theme, but the person's not in it yet, and I'm like, okay,
Yes.
they're coming.
Yeah. You're like,
And then-
Okay, so so we know that lighting is effective for, a lot of good things and could be potentially, because like what Sully was saying, the reason we got this idea, Sully was like, I wrote a paper about how it can be either helpful or harmful. People can use in worship can either use lighting for like some manipulative type of like
Mhm.
drum fill swell kind of, also with the lighting trying to get you to have a reaction, but it can also be helpful in a certain way. Can you think of anything just it's okay if you can't, off the top of your head, where you're like, this would be something in a worship setting that I would use or think of to be like, this would put people in a good position for worship? Because I mean, we've talked about this with music all the time,
Mhm.
but I've never heard anything about lighting and all that kind of stuff. So is there anything that you can think of that would be like that, or is it kind of...
I just want to make sure I understand what your question. Like, is there something in lighting specifically for worship that could help prompt the congregation?
Yeah, that would be assisting in their worship
Yeah.
experience, leading them potentially closer to God, and in a way that's uplifting for the congregation. Something that you feel like, okay, this is a thing that I would do with the lighting that would be positive impact for... I don't know if that's just too too wordy.
No. I'm
Okay.
Yeah, it's okay. Like I said, having the congregation lights dimmer
Mhm.
is something that I always ask and hope for, because like I said, sometimes people are just very scared to open up and be vulnerable. I know I was like that. And in a church where there was bright lights and it was like harsh lighting from the top, and you have these like
Mhm.
dark shadows and you look like an alien, like
Yeah.
it wasn't comfortable. And if you're not comfortable just standing there, I don't think you'd feel comfortable worshiping.
Mm.
So to take the pressure off of you and dim the lights and do exactly that is like, let the Lord guide us in his presence and just illuminate the worship team with a very soft light. A second thing is transitions. I'm huge, even in audio, fade in, fade out.
Mm-hmm.
Chucking the lights blackout all the way up. What happens when you're in a room? This happened a lot in like middle school, or like teacher would play a movie's over, all the lights come up and everyone's like,
Kink.
oh my gosh.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
it's
that's
like
You get that high
the
pitch
movie
ringing and
magic
you're
is
like,
over. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
like for worship, I don't want them to feel like, oh, I'm being yanked out of that presence, or to associate dim lights, God's presence.
Yeah.
Right.
We don't want them associating. It is a
Right.
transition when you slowly lift the lights so they can take their
Mhm.
notes and they can look at their notebook, so that they can be attentive. You don't want them falling asleep either. This
Yeah.
isn't a show
Right.
or a theater, like a play. You don't keep them in the dark the whole time.
Mhm.
Right.
So I think those things, and it's intentional. Like, it lets them know, like, there's someone there carefully making sure that I'm not yanked out of the
Mhm.
mindset that I'm
Yeah.
in the Lord's presence.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good stuff.
Well,
That's
Thank
all
you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Today.
happy to sit
Seriously.
with you
So
guys.
random.
That was-
we asked Anna literally last
Last
night
night.
to join us
Yeah.
today.
Yeah.
So
it was a shot in
we're
the
so
dark.
we're so happy that you were able to join us and just get to come hang out with us on the podcast.
No,
so
I'm very happy. I'd love
Yeah.
to come again. And
Yeah.
Absolutely.
We'd love to have you back
it's
on.
such a new. We talk about. We kind of recycle a lot of things.
Yeah.
Just
No,
well, I
it's
mean,
good.
not in a bad way, but just we have the things we know about and are passionate about and we talk about. But I mean, I know nothing.
Yeah, he
about
was like,
lighting.
I don't really want to talk about lighting. I don't know anything about that. And I was like, I think it'd be great.
Yeah, and I'm happy we did. So
So yeah,
thank you.
thanks so much.
no
And
problem.
we will see you guys on Friday for another special guest, double this week, which is so exciting. And we will see you then for another heaping healthy ladle of peas. Bye, guys.